Strange but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. Things that go bump in the night has always been a horror trope, but the reason is it works. We are terrified by the strange noises that wake us up in the middle of the night. Mostly, whatever it is harmless and explainable. But there are those times when a bump or a crash in the middle of the night is neither harmless nor explainable. Such was the case in today's story, sent to us by a woman who is a longtime viewer and subscriber to SBT. I met my husband while we were both in the Army and stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma in 1977. My hometown was about 60 miles west of St. Louis, and he had grown up in Michigan. And over the years, we made many trips by car from one hometown to the others, and we wound up living in his hometown first, then mine for a few years, then his again for about 5 different major moves, and along the way, we acquired 3 beautiful children, 2 girls and then a boy. When my Army enlistment was up, I came home from West Germany with our 11-month-old baby daughter, the oldest. My husband had to finish his enlistment there, and he came later. I went to my hometown first, stayed a while with my family, and then drove to Michigan to introduce the new baby to my husband's parents. Now, my in-laws' house was as old as the dinosaurs. It was a huge 130-year-old monstrosity that it was just uneven and weird and built strangely. It sat in a farm field with a crackling power line running across the front yard. The inside was pieced together with a huge living room with carpeted flooring, and there was this significant bump in the floor that went up and then down, and the floor was bare where a wall had been removed. The kitchen had a bedroom to the side that had a door to another small bedroom. The cellar was a bare dirt floor with fieldstones, stacked up walls, and an ancient rusty oil-burning furnace. The stone-stacked wall ended under the kitchen area, and a 2-foot black dirt hole expanded on under the house. And once my husband had to go in there to run a wire, and he came out hustling, saying that he felt like something was in there. Well, if the creepy Michigan cellar wasn't bad enough, the upstairs was. Between the kitchen and the living room was a door that opened to a skinny stairwell. More lumpy carpeting on the stairs, and the stairs went straight up, rather steeply. The steps were narrow, too, so when you came down the stairs, you had to put your feet sideways. As you went up the stairs, you could see into the room to the right, as it only had a half wall. That small room had large windows on 3 sides, as it was built on top of the house this way. It was positioned directly above the downstairs kitchen dining area. On the left of the stairwell was another bedroom. It was a creepy house, built rather kookily. So taking the baby to meet this set of grandparents was an exciting adventure. One day while we were visiting, I decided to take my daughter upstairs for a nap. And we went to the bedroom on the right, and we both lay down on the bed next to the front window. It was quiet, and she fell immediately to sleep. Well, suddenly, there was an earth-shattering boom. The room's 3 windows shook and rattled. I thought something catastrophic had happened. In the house, outside the house, I didn't know. It woke the baby, though, and she started screaming. I grabbed her, stumbled down the stairs to the kitchen where my in-laws were having their afternoon coffee. I said, "What happened? What was that sound? What's going on?" They hardly moved, and they said, "What?" I said, "That crash, that explosion." They looked at me like I was crazy. I described it to them as much as I could in as much detail as I could give them about what I knew I had felt, but they said they hadn't heard or felt a thing. I let it go, but I was shaken by that. Many years later, over Easter break, we once again made the trek to Michigan. We had our second daughter at this point, who was now 16, and our son, who was 12. Now, back then, the drive could be rough, as there weren't a lot of gas stations or places to get food along the way. When we finally got to the house, it was full of other in-laws and their kids, so my daughter and I were given the little upstairs room to the right to sleep in. There were now 2 twin beds, sort of side by side in that room, and when we had spoken to everybody that night and met the new babies, we exhaustedly went up the stairs to bed. I didn't know it at the time, but my life was about to change forever, as I truly had a paranormal experience that I will never be able to explain. I had a tough time falling to sleep that night, despite being completely worn out. It probably had a lot to do with the baby in the other bedroom crying incessantly. But eventually, I managed to drift off to sleep. I woke up to a soft, warm, light, cozy pressure on the bottom of my feet, coaxing me awake. Then I had such a strange feeling of my feet and legs going up in the air. I murmured to myself, "How strange." I began to stir awake, and then my legs and feet went down and down, farther below where my body would have been laying flat on my back. Then I startled awake, and there was this huge crash. The bed began jolting back and forth long ways, from the headboard to the foot of the bed. It shook me incredibly hard, with my hands on my chest and my legs at an upward angle. The room was filled with some kind of powerful presence. Then it shook me loose and made a sound I can describe like the clacking of a spoon in a heavy diner-style coffee cup. Only this sound was in a spiral as it went clack, 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 clack around in a spiral and away out the window on the opposite wall. Everything in the room stopped shaking and returned to normal. My 16-year-old daughter, who had been sleeping on the other bed, flew up on her knees and whipped her hair around. Some Barbie dolls on a nearby shelf had fallen everywhere, and she asked, "What's going on?" Well, I was in complete shock, but could only manage to say, "Nothing, just try to go back to sleep." Of course, for me, that was impossible. I just stared at the ceiling the rest of the night, scared and worried whatever had been in that room with us would come back. The next morning, I asked if anyone had heard or felt or seen anything, or had something happen to them while they slept. Nobody had seen, heard, or felt anything unusual. I asked my sister-in-law if they had had a hard night with the baby crying so much. She gave me this really weird look and said the baby hadn't cried at all. In fact, the baby had been asleep when they put him down and didn't wake at all during the night. I tried to get anyone to help me figure out what had happened to me, but I could tell that nobody really wanted to help, and they would all rather that I not carry on about it. It took me many months to figure out what had happened. I had levitated above the bed, and when I started to awaken, the spell began to break and I fell crashing onto the bed. Somehow the force couldn't get free, and so it shook me hard and made my legs angle up. The spiral clacking is a mystery that I can't figure out, and probably never will. So life went on. My husband and I got a divorce, and then several years later he moved back in with his parents to dry out from a drug addiction. Unfortunately, a short time later, he killed himself in that same little bedroom upstairs that my daughter and I had our nightmarish experience, probably on the same bed that I was in. The mystery of why and what happened to him will always haunt me. I do think there are forces that help depressed people make horrible decisions. We have to believe that his soul is with God. After his death, I took white roses to the room and left them on the bed. I wanted to feel something, anything. Instead, it was only deathly quiet. After my experience, I discovered that the house was built by a doctor who had his office there in the house. Who knows what went on back in the late 1800s at the doctor's office. My in-laws were good people. Other than a fire in the attic of the other bedroom upstairs, they lived comfortably in that house and claimed that they never had anything strange happen to them. This has been another strange but true story sent to us by a subscriber to SBT. So, what do you think happened to this woman in her 2 experiences in that Michigan house? Tell us in the comments below, and maybe we could all come to a better understanding of the strange things that exist all around us, yet remain mostly unseen. Subscribe if you haven't already, and sign up for notifications so you know when the next video drops to our channel. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Steve White. Until next time.